Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I am your guide, Derek Hayes. Now, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for dropping by this evening. As always, it's a pleasure to share the show with you. Now, before we get started, I need to give a little update. Because of recent events, the release schedule will be adjusted just a bit. Now, you see, last Thursday, a fire broke out at the base of our mountain. The line fire for those that watch the news. Well, by early Saturday evening, Sarah and I were stuffing anything we could into our vehicle, and we evacuated off the mountain. As of this recording, our house and community are still standing. Most of it, anyway. But the threat grows each and every day that the fire progresses. Now, we're fine. We don't need any help. We're safe in an Airbnb down in the desert. Most everything we own is still up on that mountain, though. So that's certainly something we're thinking about. Now, before I go any further, I just want to personally thank the firefighters, the law enforcement, the National Guard, and anyone else who is risking their lives to save our home and 36,000 others. We are so very grateful. Now, as for the show, we're going to go on as planned for now, but I think next week's Hometown Legends might be pushed a week or two. It all depends on when we can go home. And I'm sorry about that, but as you can imagine, it's very hard to concentrate on work right now. And doing a full 2-hour Hometown Legends special is completely out of the question. But we don't plan on going dark, however. At the very least, I'll be releasing content from behind the paywall until we're back at full force. And luckily, I already have a couple of the Tuesday episodes completed. So for now, those episodes are unaffected. And that's where we are tonight. Not a great situation to be in, but we're all safe. Now, as planned, I'm releasing 2 previously locked Patreon episodes. Now, if you would, please enjoy the Season 17 Episode 9 Beyond portion, preceded by the Season 17 Episode 3 Beyond portion, already in progress. And with a little luck, I'll catch you guys back here next week. Enjoy the show. After all, it's in the beyond that you get to hear tales such as Cam's out of the state of Florida.
Hey Derek, this is Cam. I currently reside in South Florida, Swamp Ape Land, but my stories happened in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, and they are doppelganger stories. Now, I didn't see these doppelgangers because these doppelgangers were apparently of me. It was clear back in the mid to late 80s, I'd say, because I was not too far from graduating high school. One day I went to school, and first let me go back and tell you this part. My mom had bought me this shirt. This comes into play later. And it was black. She had it custom made, and it said my name, Cam, on the front of it in white cursive letters. I tried it on once for her, and I hated this shirt, and I hung it up, and I never wore it again. This comes into play later. I just hated how it looked. It wasn't cool with the heavy metal hair or all that, you know. It just wasn't cool. So I just wore it once for her, hung it up. There you go. So I go to school, and you know how you got like these people, you know, you're not like really good friends with, but you know who they are. And we had a bank across the street from our high school. Now, granted, I'm like, I don't know, 16 or 17. And I never had a bank account in my life till later when I joined the Army. So this guy comes up to me, this kid, and he's like, oh, hey, man, when did you get a bank account? I said, I ain't got no bank account. What are you talking about, man? He said, oh, I seen you go in the bank the other day across the street. And I'm thinking, you know, every kid in America, you know, that's in the metal bag has got long hair. And I was like, nah, you probably seen somebody that looked like me, dude. I was like, yeah, we got long hair. He was like, oh, does somebody else wear a black shirt with a white name that says Cam across the front of it? And that just stopped me in my tracks because, like I said, not only did I not have a bank account, but I never wore this shirt. I didn't even tell nobody about it, you know? So this guy would have no way of knowing. So anyways, thought that was weird. And the other one was, this was around the same time period, within a year of that, I'd say. I started dating this girl, and we go to the local Westland Mall there for our first date. And so they have these like trees inside with seats around them. Her and I are sitting there waiting for the movie, to go see a movie. And these two girls come walking up, and I mean, they were gorgeous. And they're like, hey, Cam. And I had no idea who these girls were. Never seen them before in my life. And they started talking to me. And they're like, you don't remember us from Frank's party? Now, I knew one guy named Frank, and he didn't have no parties. He didn't have no parties. He definitely didn't have a party anywhere within the time period they were talking about, which was like 4 days before they saw me at this mall. And they were like, well, yeah, we talked to you for like an hour at the party. And I'm like, and the girl I'm taking out, you know, for the first time, she's looking at me like, uh-huh. I'm like, I swear to you, this was not me. But, you know, that's the extent of the stories. You know, apparently somewhere back then, I had a doppelganger. I don't know. I hope he had a better run at this thing called life than I had for a while. I just love your podcast, man. I binged it all in like a month. I got turned on to it from Uncle Rob Morphy and the boys over there at the Kryptonite. And, yeah, just keep doing a great job, man. Later.
Thank you, Cam. All three of you. We appreciate you calling in. Oh, and if you're not already a listener of Kryptonaut Podcast, get on over there and check them out. If it's obscure cryptids and humanoids that get you going, they're certainly the guys with the goods. Just use your judgment around the little ones, because there's no shortage of bad language used. Welcome back to the Beyond Monster Squad. It's great to have you here with me for the first time in quite a while. Our little hiatus was nice, but it's great to be back on schedule and back in the Beyond with you. Now I have a whole slew of calls to share, so let's get back into the action, beginning with Mick in Mississippi.
Hey, Derek, this is Mick from Mississippi. I was just thinking about something that happened to me a few years ago, and I thought maybe it'd be a cool little story for your podcast. Maybe you could use it. So when I was 16, I got pregnant. And when I found out, and after I took the test, I thought, okay, I'm not going to tell my mom until after prom, because prom was a week away, I believe. And I just wanted one night where things could be kind of normal and, you know, go about my time. And then after that, I'd sit her down and tell her. Well, one night, it was a couple of days before prom, my mom said, hey, McKinley, I need to talk to you. And so she took me out back on her back porch, and she said, so I had a dream last night, and I've been thinking about it, and I just wanted to bring it up to you. I was like, okay. And she said, I had a dream that our cat was sick and that you were pregnant. and she's like standing there smoking her cigarette, just staring at me. And I just kind of looked at her. She's like, "You're not pregnant, are you?" And I kind of laughed and nodded, and there was, the whole mom-daughter thing moment. And then she said, of course we made a joke and said, maybe we should take our cat to the vet and go check her out, but she never ended up being sick. But yeah, I thought that would be a cute little story to put on your podcast. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for the show, and keep at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick, for the phone call. Now, this is strange, because the critical thinking part of my brain really wants to chalk this experience up to some sort of coincidence, or even a little mind trick by Mom, especially since the family cat did not end up ill, as the mother had suspected. But I can tell that Mick believes there might be something more to this, so I'm gonna stay open-minded here. After all, we certainly have no shortage of similar experiences. Hell, I've even made similar predictions in the past myself. So who am I to cast doubt? Either way, it made for an interesting story, Mick. So thank you again for taking the time to share it here with us. Now, folks, don't forget, if you have a tale to tell, call our hotline at 1-888-608-NIGHT, or shoot me an email at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. Procrastination. We're all guilty of it. I tend to procrastinate the most when I'm overwhelmed by my to-do list. Instead of diving in, I find myself wasting time on YouTube or some other rabbit hole. Well, I found a new secret weapon to help kick procrastination to the curb: Thesis. Thesis is a brain-boosting supplement made with natural ingredients and proven in clinical studies to support faster reaction times, speed up mental activation, and improve concentration. In other words, Thesis helps you get through your to-do list and remember where you parked your car in the short term, while also supporting your cognitive health in the long term. For a limited time, Monsters Among Us users can save $60 on their first subscription order with code MAU at takethesis.com. That's $60 off your first order at takethesis.com with promo code MAU. So here's how it works. You take a short quiz about your life and goals, so Thesis can identify the best nootropic blends for you. You'll receive a starter kit with 4 different blends to test, so you can find out which ones work best for you. Now, my starter kit included blends to help with clarity, creativity, energy, and motivation. There are 6 blends total. The other 2 are logic and confidence. All of the Thesis products are non-GMO and vegan and gluten-free. Thesis third party even tests 100% of its raw ingredients for purity and potency. Since I've started using Thesis, I've had less brain fog, and I feel more focused, energized, and ready to take on the day. As someone who works for myself, it's important to be self-motivated, and Thesis makes that much easier to achieve. So take the free 3-minute quiz to find out what your brain needs. Head to takethesis.com and use code MAU to save $60 on your first subscription when you sign up for Thesis. That's $60 off your first order at takethesis.com with promo code MAU. Maximize your mind with Thesis today.
It's free towing and car rental. At Southern California Sears 2024 season.
Now then, this next call requires just a little bit of background information. So how many of you remember Alex's call from Broome County, New York, that was shared on Season 16, Episode 26, the bonus episode with the boys from Bigfoot Collectors Club? The one where his wife may or may not have had an alien abduction experience on her way home from a casino. Well, because we like to be thorough here at Monsters Among Us, here's that call in full, just to refresh your memory.
Hi, Derek. This is Alex from Broome County, New York. So back in October, my wife went to the casino for a little bit. She's the type of person who she'll go to the casino with $100 and come back with 5. And this is something she does to relieve stress. So I don't think much of it. She calls me on her way back, and she's in a mild panic, I would say. Her car had died briefly, and there was no traffic on the highway for like 10 or 15 minutes, I think she said. And then her car started back up. Like, at this point, her phone had also died, but then it started back up again. And this, I don't want to say it's a well-traveled road, but like it's a highway. At the hour she's driving, I've never seen it be empty for that space of time. Like, there's always somebody. So she's calling me, she's kind of panicked, and she stays, like, we stay talking until she gets home for like 15 minutes. And so, I'm talking, trying to calm her down, because, well, it's pretty obvious. Like, I'm thinking, like, all right, well, that's weird. That's super weird. She's also thinking it's weird. I don't want to say aliens, but that's not uncommon for cars to lose power in that situation, according to the stories. Anyway, I don't think too much of it until the next morning when I reference what happened last night, and she has no idea what I'm talking about. Like, she thinks I'm pulling her leg. She has no memory of anything weird happening on the drive back. She has no memory of calling me, of talking, until she pulled back into the garage. I'm fairly freaking out because, like, am I losing my mind? So I go in and I look at my phone and I check, like, yeah, there was a call here, 15 minutes, October 13th. I know because I just checked it and it's still in my phone. And at this point, like, the hairs on my arms are sticking up. I am freaked. I could easily explain, like, some weird car trouble, just a quiet night on the highway, whatever. But her not remembering any of that, it got me pretty weirded out. That's my story. Thank you, and I hope you can use this. Have a good one.
Now, just the other day, Alex's wife, Olivia, actually called in with her side of what occurred that evening. So, Olivia, welcome to the program.
Hi, this is Olivia. Recently, I see that you did an episode that my husband had submitted from Broome County Alien. I am the wife, so I just wanted to give you a call back and give you some more details. I eventually did remember that night. I had left the casino around about 7:38. I had called my husband because some strange things were happening. It was about that time. It took me about 30 minutes on a typical day to get back home from the casino. This day it took me about an hour and a half. My car just died, and I started to call him because I kept trying to turn it over, and I'm like, I don't know how to fix the car, so maybe he can help me. At this point is when I noticed that there was no other cars on the highway. Now, this is a busy stretch of highway. Cars are constantly going back and forth on 81. But, yeah, it was definitely creepy. I did not remember the time when I got back the next morning. It was pretty crazy because he kept pacing around back and forth saying this happened, and I got very confused because I did not remember. I do want to say that I did remember eventually after a really strange dream, and then I started freaking out about it as well. The one bit of information that we've been kind of complex on is I do have this mark on my upper forearm that wasn't there beforehand, and if we press down on it, it seems like there's something in there. We can't figure out what. I recently just continue to poke it to find out. It's long, thin, kind of circular in shape, but it looks like there was an incision mark there. I just wanted to follow up because more information is great. But thank you. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Olivia, for that additional information. Now, a few of you might be a little confused as to why something in Olivia's arm might be connected to what occurred that evening. If that's the case, it would suggest that you likely don't know about alien implants. Alien implants are purported objects or devices inserted into the bodies of individuals who claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings. These implants, often described as small metallic objects, are alleged to serve various purposes, including monitoring, tracking, biological experimentation, or even mind control. And while some within the ufology and paranormal communities consider these implants as evidence of alien encounters, skeptics argue that they can be explained by mundane phenomena or psychological factors. Despite ongoing debate and speculation, scientific evidence supporting the existence or function of alien implants remains elusive, with research efforts yielding inconclusive results. But before you discount anything, just listen to what some experts are saying about this wild concept.
Something in the device acts as an antenna to allow it to broadcast radio waves, and any small object that is emitting radio signals has to be something that's a device rather than just an inert piece of material.
I think there's a very good case to be made that they're tracking devices. These objects do emit an RF frequency.
If ever there was hard evidence that these UFO encounters, these alien abduction claims are real, then it's the implants.
Could the evidence of alien implants really be undeniable proof that we are being visited by extraterrestrials? And might this also confirm that alien abduction is real?
Now that clip taken from Quest TV. And if what is claimed in the clip is real, then that means Olivia's suspicions could be correct, and our collective fears are substantiated. So thank you again, Olivia, for the additional information, and for scaring the hell out of all of us. Now, folks, our next entry takes us to the bluegrass state of Kentucky. Lydia, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Derek. This is Lydia from Kentucky again. I called back actually to give you one of your favorite kinds of stories, ABC. I've actually had 2 black cat sightings. Okay. The first one was when I was 5 years old. I live in Kentucky. At the time, I lived in southern Kentucky in a little town called Eubank, Kentucky. And I was hiding. This is like the sun was starting to go down. It was summertime. My uncle was visiting because my grandmother lived right next door to us down there. And I was hiding under the porch with my green witch vinyl mask. You remember those from the 80s, you know, like you couldn't breathe. It probably would break you out kind of mask, you know, but it was a green witch mask with the black curly hair and stuff. And I was hiding under the porch because I knew he was coming over from across the yard at my grandma's place. So I was hiding under our porch, and the way I was like hunkered down, and I was going to pop out and scare him, right? And I was facing our neighbor's driveway, which is a farm, a dairy farm. And when I popped out to scare him, he was inebriated. He doesn't remember any of this. He used to have a drinking problem, sadly, but he's better now. And behind him, so I jump out, I do the whole, you know, whatever, and your little dog too thing I was going to say. But there was a freaking black, I mean, the only way to describe this is a black panther walking up that driveway. So he didn't see it because I guess because he's looking at me, you know, because I jumped out and scared him. But I see that cat, and I was so young, I guess I didn't realize that, you know, like it was a predator or what have you. And I was just like, I want to go pet the kitty and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Nobody ever believed me on that. Okay, I get it. I was 5. But I know what I saw, and it was a solid black, huge, I mean, this thing, it's a black panther. It looks like the size of a mountain lion. It looks like a black mountain lion is what they look like. I saw no spots, no stripes, no nothing. It was solid black. And it smelled like cat pee. Like, it smelled like male cat pee is what it smelled like, to be honest with you. I've had enough cats in my life. I know. Okay, so sighting number 2. Flash forward. This was like within the past 10 years. It was in Wayne County, Kentucky, on Lake Cumberland this time. So I was driving home from a little concert with my partner at the time, and we were almost home. And this is like, I'm talking backwoods, no cell reception, no nothing. I had to like walk to the top of a hill to get cell reception at this trailer that I had down there. So I'm driving down the road, and I'm like within, 1/10 of a mile of my house. And it's a gravel road, and I'm going down the hill, the final hill, and something jumps, like crossing the gravel road. And again, I mean, it looked like it could have been the same damn cat kind of thing. Massive, black, feline, complete feline. There's no way that was a dog. I have seen one bear down there. This was not a bear. You know how their tails are and stuff. It's a freaking cat. Again, my headlights were on high because I was always aware of deer and stuff. So I knew it wasn't like striped or spotted. I knew it wasn't a bobcat. I knew it wasn't a catamount, which is a mountain lion kind of thing. It was a black panther cat. It was a black panther cat. And it like made the bounds. You know how felines are. It was just real smooth and stuff. And its paws, all 4 of them kind of touched the middle of the small gravel road at one time, and it like was just going from kind of jumping down onto the road and then crossing down like to the other side of the road, and it went down a hill that way. I saw it and, come to a screeching halt, kind of skidded sideways because it's gravel. And my partner, screamed some nice language and was like, what the hell was that? So I sat there in the middle of the road. Obviously couldn't see where the cat went because it went down the mountainside. But I had to eventually roll down the hill and park in my driveway. And we went in and got the dogs because, we'd been at a little concert out in the middle of nowhere in Jabez, Kentucky, which if anyone knows that area, it's, maybe a 10-minute drive from where I had been. So it was a pretty scary night walking the dogs after that. And I did not smell the cat pee smell that time, but it definitely made me put all of my dogs on leash because I didn't want that thing to come back and check me out like I had been checking it out. Yeah. So, I mean, like, there's no question in my mind that there are ABCs. They're around. There's Black Panther cats in this area. I think they're all over the country. I don't know why they don't admit that. It's I don't know. Conspiracies, I guess. All right. Keep it spooky, guys. And, yeah, somebody else let me know if they've seen any in Kentucky, because I know there's been a few sightings. I've just never, heard anyone else's story of seeing one. Thanks, Derek.
Thank you, Lydia. Well, actually, Kentucky is one of the top states for ABC sightings. If not generally, certainly within this program. We've had a lot of encounters just like this one, reported from that state. In fact, Delaney Bowers, our researcher in MAU Mima, as she insists that I call her, had a sighting there as well. That whole region seems to be a hotbed for these sightings. Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and some of the surrounding areas. Something I think should warrant further consideration. But that's just my opinion. Can you name every single subscription you have off the top of your head? I know I can't. And I'm not alone. 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten all about. But since I started using Rocket Money, I don't have to remember every subscription, because I can see them all laid out right in front of me on the awesome app. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills. Rocket Money sends me alerts when there's unusual spending activity, price increases, and when an auto-pay charge is about to go through. These are all things I might have missed otherwise with my busy schedule. But Rocket Money makes it so much easier to create a budget and keep track of my spending. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you by up to 20% and can help you cancel a subscription with just a few taps. Having such a clear view of my expenses is a game changer. There's even a new goals feature that automatically saves money for you without you having to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off debt, save for a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money is there to support you. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/Monsters Among Us. That's rocketmoney.com/Monsters Among Us. rocketmoney.com/Monsters Among Us. Let's move on to our next call, which is also our final entry of the evening. Please join me in welcoming our anonymous caller from parts unknown.
Hi, so my story of a ghost sighting happened when I was 16 years old, which was over 20 years ago, and I was spending the summer in a small town in Connecticut called Torrington, and I was there for a ballet program, and all the young ballet dancers were staying at a very old bed and breakfast. So all the ballet dancers were staying on the third floor, the top floor of the bed and breakfast, and vacationers were on the other floors. And since we were there for 6 weeks, the maids who worked there got to know us over time, and they would tell us stories of a ghost that lived on the third floor. And of course, the ghost liked my room the best. And the ghost she was fairly friendly apparently, but would play kind of jokes on the maids where they would go in, make up the bed, put the sheets on, go out to their cart to get something, come back, and all the sheets would be messed up. Or another story they told us was that they would go into the bathroom to start cleaning the bathroom, and the water would turn on and off by itself, like she was kind of teasing them. So a couple weeks into the ballet program, and we had heard these stories, and I'd been told that she liked my room the best, and she often would hang out there. My roommate and I were playing some Enya music while we were getting ready to go to bed. And we would keep the CD in the CD player, and we would play it every night when we were kind of like calming down and getting ready to go to sleep, and even sometimes we would fall asleep to the music. Well, after a few weeks of being in the room, in the middle of the night, the CD player started turning on by itself and turning to one song on the CD, and then it would play the one song, and then it would turn off. And a lot of my friends, when I started telling them this, they're like, well, the CD player must be on a timer. And I was like, well, no, because every time it turns on, and this started happening every night, night after night. Every time the CD player would turn on, it was always a different time. It would always be between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, but it was always slightly different, like 4:15, 4:45, 4:26. And it would always turn to the one song, which was in the middle of the album, just play that one song and then turn off. It didn't just start playing from the first song and play the whole album through. So, of course, I'm thinking it's the ghost, and she's kind of messing with me. And so after a couple, maybe 2 weeks of this going on, I didn't sleep. And this one night, I literally laid awake all night waiting for the CD player to turn on. And eventually, around 4:43 in the morning, the little red light on the CD player turns on. And I hear the CD turn spinning on. It starts playing. And at the end of my bed, I saw her. And she appeared at the end of my bed. It was like a gray, willowy figure, kind of floating. And she had long hair, and I couldn't really see her face. And I got a very quick glimpse of her, and I just put the covers over my head, and I literally stayed there until my roommate woke up, and it was all over. And that was it. That was, I saw her, and then fortunately that was like towards the end of the 6 weeks of me being there, and then I didn't see her again. But I definitely saw her, and when I described her to the maids, they said that other people had seen her over the years, not very often, but that was a very similar description. An older woman, and the tale goes, I guess, this woman was that they think that she is the ghost of a woman whose husband died in the B&B a long time ago. So there was an older couple that would come, and they would come and visit this town in Connecticut, and they would stay in this B&B. And one time when they were staying there, and apparently it was in the room I was staying in, that he passed away. And so his ghost wasn't there, but her ghost continued to come back. And that's pretty much the end of my story of seeing the ghost in Torrington, Connecticut. And that was in the summer of 1997. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, caller, for ringing in. There's that B&B setting again. And another reminder to be careful when you visit one. If not for the weirdos, then for the spirits. And although it sounds like our caller's experience was relatively harmless, it just seems to me that this ghost was an Enya fan. A fan of a specific song, in fact. Some attachments are hard to let go of, I suppose, even after death. So thank you again, caller, for chiming in.
Neanderthals' humanity. Neanderthal practiced and...
Content like this story from Dale, down there in Florida.
Hey Derek, this is Dale. I called earlier with a story. My brother and I went to Ireland last year to research our roots and kind of find our roots. Our last name's Hayes, like yours. But we kind of had a general idea where our roots were from and our family and stuff like that. So we did a 2-week tour. We didn't go with a tour group or anything like that. We just kind of did our own thing. Went off the beaten path. And we stayed at a haunted castle, which was funny. We stayed at Ballygally Castle in Northern Ireland. Didn't see any ghosts. They have a tower that's supposedly haunted, but we didn't see anything. We were even joking around telling the ghost to bring us beer, stuff like that, to our room, sitting there mocking it. Nothing ever happened. Anyways, the last night we flew into Dublin and we pretty much went all around the island. So, went from Northern Ireland all the way down to Donegal, then to Clare and Kerry and all that, went back to Dublin. The last night that we were staying there, my brother and I had to be up early in the morning to catch our flight out back to Florida. So we knew we really couldn't do any drinking or anything like that, so we had like one beer at the bar, went back, went to bed pretty much the same time. So anyways, I was about to fall asleep, and I was in that in-between state where you're kind of awake, but you're not, and you're about to fall asleep. Anyways, I heard like a shrieking. I wouldn't call it a wailing. My brother said he heard a shrieking or a wailing sound. It sounded more like a shrieking to me. And we both woke up at the same time. I turned over instinctively to kind of hit like an alarm clock, thinking it was an alarm or the phone or something like that, but there wasn't an alarm clock there, and the phone wasn't ringing. So I kind of sat there for a minute, kind of dazed, and in Ireland there is no AC, so like you have to open a window or something like that, and they have a fan. They usually have fans you can put in the room, but other than that, there's no central AC, so you have to use like ambient air. So anyways, it really wasn't foggy out. So I'm laying on the bed, and I look over at my brother, and he's like, what the hell was that? And I'm like, I don't know. And he described what he thought was a shrieking, wailing kind of sound. Sounded like a shrieking to me. I wouldn't have said wailing, but anyways, kind of shrugged it off. But then in front of me, as I turned back, was almost a ring. It almost looked like fog, but as I looked at it, it was only like a second. It just like moved into me, and a gust of air just moved into me. And prior to that, there was no air movement in the room. It was actually kind of stuffy. So anyways, didn't think anything of it. I told my brother what I experienced. He thought it was weird, but we kind of chucked it up. We kind of played around and said it was a banshee. Well, he doesn't believe in specters or ghosts or anything like that. I'm still on the fence about it. But come to find out later on, we went there April 18th, and my uncle was going to have a biopsy for, I guess, like a tumor or something like that. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know he had a tumor. Anyways, he died a month and a half after that. And it just seems coincidental. And I don't know if it was a banshee, but it's kind of weird. It's almost because banshees are supposed to be a sign of impending doom or a family member that's dying. And both sides of our family are from Ireland. So, I don't know. Thought that'd be a pretty cool story. It definitely was weird. Not saying it was a banshee, but definitely weird. Weird how the events turned out. So anyways, maybe you can use this, maybe you can't. All right, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Dale. You know, ironically, I once had a great uncle named Dale Hayes, and he too lived down in Florida. He too also passed away a number of years ago. But I suppose there's a slim chance that we are related, Dale. If only distantly. I do have somewhere near 50 first cousins, so I suppose that's always possible. Hayes is a very widespread and somewhat popular name. And it turns out that the Banshee puts a ton of stock in a surname, because it's said that they only cry for certain families with certain names. Families with deep Irish roots. Now, luckily, I found a clip elaborating a bit on this theory, and it comes with some background information on the infamous Banshee, straight from the Emerald Isles themselves. Now, the following clip was from a 1986 airing of The Late Late Show with Gay Byrne, featuring Professor Patricia Lysott, an authority on the Banshee, who lectures in the Department of Folklore at the University College in Dublin.
The Banshee, the Irish supernatural death messenger, what is it, Patricia? What is it?
Well, the Banshee is an omen of death, and she's supposed to cry. It's supposed to be a woman who's supposed to cry for certain families in Ireland.
What families?
Well, they're very special families. It's not any old family she cries for, sort of thing, you know. There are families who are supposed to be Irish. They're the Anglo-Norman families. The Burns, for example, she's supposed to cry for the Burns, you know.
Is she?
She is, mind you.
We're on the list.
You are.
And what other families does she cry
Well,
for?
she cries for the McMahons, the Murphys, the Nagels, the Nugents, the Kellys, you name it, sort of thing.
So the whole thing is, if you hear the Banshee crying, it's an omen of death?
Yes, in certain families.
And who hears her?
Well, the members of the family themselves can hear her, but more often it's the neighbours who hear her. It's something that's heard in the community. It's the people sort of who know that somebody is dying in a certain house in the community, and they're listening out for the Banshee, of course, because they know that this particular family is supposed to be followed by the Banshee. And it's mostly the neighbours, in fact, who hear the Banshee.
And what sort of a sound from your research does she make?
Well, it's a very lonesome sound. As one Cork woman said, I never heard anything so lonesome before. It's a long, lonesome cry. It's a benign sort of sound, you know. It's a sound of somebody who's interested in the family, who's sort of sorry that somebody in the family is going to die. One of the family sort of thing, you know.
Now, I've been long familiar with the legend of the Banshee, but I was today years old when I learned that she only cries for certain families. Now, I tried to find a concise list of names, but was not able to find anything worth sharing. And I certainly didn't find the name Hayes on any of those lists. But it's an incredible story, Dale. And I'm glad you shared it here with us. Especially since my last name may somehow be involved. Well, folks, welcome back to another installment of our after show, The Beyond. Featuring me, Derek Hayes, as your guide, host, editor, and a bunch of other positions. I have all sorts of goodies lined up for you this evening. Some really, really strange stuff. So let's kick off the weirdness with some missing time from Taylor, up in Connecticut.
The best way that I can describe what happened is that it's surreal, and it's something that still bothers me to this day. Hello, I'm Taylor from Connecticut, longtime listener, very excited to potentially be on the show. So what happened to me, which I would love if other people could help me figure out, is it was a bright, sunny day, and I was working alone in my house as I work from home with my golden retriever, and I was sending text messages back and forth to my boyfriend. I was standing at my kitchen sink, and I sent him one more text message. Then I called my dog to come down to the front door and hooked him up, and we went and got in the car. I had 2 errands I had to run that day. The first errand was I had to run to my doctor's office, which is 1.5 miles from my house. When I get to the end of our driveway, I take a right, and it's 1.5 miles straight shot, and then I turn around and come back, and on the way home, I had to drop something off in the mailbox. To tell you this story, I have to explain to you about the mailbox. There is a mailbox that is in the plaza on the way home from my doctor's office or on my way to the doctor's office. It's essentially next door. And this is the mailbox that I use all the time because the pickup time for that post office box is 3 p.m. And they come and get our mail anywhere from 12 to 12:30. So lots of the time, I have mail that has to go out, and I have missed the opportunity to put it in my mailbox. So I will hop in the car, and I will go over to that blue box, and I will drop it off. And most of the time, when I'm at that blue box to drop it off at 3 o'clock, I see the postman there picking up for his 3 o'clock pickup like clockwork. He takes a smoke break from about 2:50 to 3 o'clock, and I used to be able to walk my dog over to that blue mailbox, so he and I have passed each other enough times that he knows who I am by name. So I have to run down to the doctor's office this day and turn around and come back. I, standing at the kitchen sink, texting my boyfriend, have a timestamp of 2:48 p.m. I grab the dog, we get in the car, I turn the car on, and when I turn my car on, in my center console, there's a digital clock, and it reads 2:52 p.m. I drive down the street to the doctor's office, and then I turn around, and I come back. When I got to my doctor's office, they were ready for me. I just had to pick up a piece of paperwork, so I just had to go into the office, talk to the front desk worker. She had a piece of paper I needed to pick up. There was nobody in line. I walked in. She goes, "Oh, hi, Taylor. Here's your paperwork." Hands it to me. I turn around. I get back in my car, and I start heading home. At this time, I look at the clock, and I jokingly think to myself, yep, of course, it's going to be exactly 3 p.m., and my mail guy's going to be there. So sure enough, I go to pull into the plaza, and the mail guy is there, and we greet each other, and we say hello. I jokingly hand him the mail, and I say timing is everything, and he has a chuckle. And then I go get back in my car, and the plaza is 800 feet from my front door. But because I'm in my car, I have to drive around to get into my driveway. Okay, so I can't cut through the grass like I would if I was walking the dog. So I get in my car, I drive around this little loop. It takes about 3 minutes. And I noticed when I restart my car that the time is 4:10. And I said to myself, wow, okay, that's strange. But daylight savings is this weekend. Maybe there's a setting in my car or something where it jumped ahead an hour. I don't know. Okay, so I'm driving and I'm pulling up to my house, and all of our yard lights are on, which are on a timer to turn on at 4:15. And I said, oh, wow, that's strange. They shouldn't be on yet because the timer's set for 4:15, as I think, while I'm pulling in. But again, giving it the benefit of the doubt, it's not unheard of that our lights are on a timer. And if for some reason the timer got unplugged and plugged back in again, it might be set to the wrong time. So I put the car in park, I grab my purse, I grab the dog, I come back inside, and I look, and all of the digital clocks in my kitchen read 4:12. And I was like, what is going on? So I go over and I check my cell phone, and it is 4:13. And I think to myself, that's not possible. It has to be at the latest in some freak of nature incident 3:30 right now, because I just saw the mailman at 3 o'clock picking up at 3 o'clock. So now I am frantically looking through my phone, and I find the timestamp of my text messages with my boyfriend when I was standing at my kitchen sink before we went to leave. Those text messages consist of, hey, I'm about to go run the errands. I have to swing through the doctor's office, drop anything off at the mail. Do you need anything at the store? Right? So like, hey, and I'm waiting for his response. I get his response, and the time stamp on my phone is 2:48 p.m. That was the essential go trigger of he doesn't need anything, you could take off. So I call the dog, get in the car. So I know that my car said 2:52 because I remember seeing it and thinking to myself, oh, that's fun. The digital 2s are all flipped around like 2:52, whatever. I get in the car, drive to the doctor's office, should have gotten there at about 3, maybe. I mean, I really should have gotten there at like probably more like 2:58 because it's not even that far, which is why I would turn around and come back. And at most, maybe the postman was a little bit late for his 3 o'clock pickup. So maybe like 3:10. And I said hello, and I get out of there, and I come around the corner and pull into the driveway. So that's why I'm saying at the very latest, it must be 3:30. And as I'm scrolling through my phone and taking screenshots of these time shots and everything, I hear the front door open, and my boyfriend comes home for 4:30. And at that point, my jaw just drops. And I look like I've seen a ghost. And he's like, what is wrong? I was like, something is terribly wrong. I seem to have lost an hour, but I don't know how it's possible I could have lost the hour. I literally have been up and running errands this entire time, and my whole day is just short an hour now. And it makes absolutely no sense to me. So I start asking him, what did you do between the hour of 3 and 4 p.m.? Do you remember that hour? Did that hour happen for you? Do you know where you were? And he was like, yeah, I absolutely remember. He's like, I got a lot of work done because it was close to the end of my day. I had about 90 minutes left in my workday, so I went back to my office, and that's when I sent all my emails. And he's showing me timestamps of his emails being sent from his office, at 3:48 p.m. A time that in my reality just didn't happen. I somewhere from 2:52 to 4:30 p.m. ran not even a 3-mile loop and lost an hour. And I cannot make sense of it because every single time I try to make sense of it, I find that there is a piece of it that doesn't make sense, like that the mailman was there at 3 o'clock, so I know it was 3 o'clock. And then I came around the corner and I checked the timer for our outdoor lights, and sure enough, they're set to turn on at like 4:15, like between the 4 and 4:30, so they wouldn't have been on at 3:30. If your viewers can help me figure it out, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks for calling in, Taylor. Missing time. Certainly a strange thing to experience. But it's even stranger to think that we might be experiencing it and not even notice. If you're not like Taylor and super tuned in to the neighborhood schedule, you might not notice a missing hour here or there. That sort of omission may simply be overlooked. Because how many times have you looked at the clock and thought, oh damn, the afternoon really got away from me? How many times has that been actual missing time and not just simple distraction? But that's not the scary part of all this. Losing an hour here or there isn't going to make or break any of us. Is it strange? Yeah. Inconvenient? Sure. But terrifying? Probably not really. But what is terrifying, however, is thinking about where we go for that duration. Are we frozen there in place, unable to move, blink, or think? Or are we transported somewhere, Abducted, examined, probed. Nah, for me, missing an hour isn't a big deal. It's not knowing where I go for that hour that really shakes my nerves. And something tells me that Taylor has a similar fear. I could just tell by the way her own story seemed to freak her out. But we do thank you for that bizarre recollection, Taylor. And please let us know if it ever happens again.
And the Cowboys. ACC first for your new.
Who raises the dead?
Now next up, we share the last call of the evening. And this one is something straight out of an 80s sci-fi movie. David in North Carolina. Welcome to tonight's show.
Hello, my name is David. I am from the Charlotte area, actually in the suburbs right outside the city. I'm in the car, so I thought I would drop you guys a quick note and let you know of some strange things that happened when I was young. We lived out in the country, and we were surrounded on three sides in our neighborhood by land that was owned by the power company and a large farm, which had numerous stock ponds as well as a lot of cattle. As I grew up, we spent a lot of time on the power company's land, riding bikes, riding motorcycles, doing the things we do as kids. And as such, we never really noticed anything weird or strange. But then one evening, we were riding through the woods on our bikes, going out further on the power lines than we had ever gone, and we came across what looked like a teepee that had been built out of a lot of trees that had been leaned together. And what was unusual was the height of that teepee was at least 15, 16 feet tall. It was absolutely massive. I mean, my reach is 7'6". I'm a 6-foot individual. And when I would reach up, even as a kid, when I was young and lanky, I could reach up and it wasn't even close to halfway up there. We just assumed some of the older kids had knocked down a bunch of little trees and leaned them together to make some type of little teepee to have a fort out in the woods, and we didn't think anything about it. As we're riding back that same evening on our bikes, we're riding up and down this little access road on the power lines, which is really more of a trail at this point because the power lines have been there for about 10 years when we were doing this. We're sitting on top of one of the last hills before it flattens out into a pasture, looking back in the distance, and what we see coming at us is literally like a 3 or 4 foot ball of white light hovering 3 to 5 feet off the ground. Now bear in mind, it's daytime, like it's evening, but the sun is still up. And we could see this thing clearly casting a shadow on the ground. And it was following exactly the path that we took on that trail coming through the woods, as if it was following us. And you know, you don't want to be the kid that freaks out and runs away, so we sat there. I'll bet you for at least 5 to 7 minutes and watched this thing going down one hill, up the next hill. It would crest the hill, go down into the next valley, come up that hill again, moving at like a walking pace, not moving fast at all. And as it's getting closer and closer, we thought originally when we saw it in the distance, it's somebody with a flashlight. It's somebody that, you know, works for the power company that's, you know, on some type of vehicle, motorcycle, you know, something. And when it was literally about true spacing, it was probably about 2/3 of a mile away, but actual, because of the distance down and back up, it was probably a mile. You know, when it came over the hill, we could see when it was on our level that it was just a ball of light that you could see through that was radiating. But what was funny was there was a shadow on the ground as the sun was setting behind it. At that point, we both looked at each other and we all hauled butt out of there and headed home. very quickly from being deep in the woods. We were probably 4 or 5 miles back on the power company land at this point, which was just a large pasture that they kept open for accessing the power lines that ran through that section. But anyway, fast forward probably that same summer, but maybe no more than 30 or 45 days later, coming back from a friend's house at night, I'm one of those kids that, when the street lights go off, it's your time to be heading home. So I was heading home, street lights were on, but there weren't that many street lights in our neighborhood. There were more like security lights in people's yards. And as I'm riding down this road, I'm coming down a hill. My house is on the next corner, and then about a quarter of a mile up the hill, I look up behind me, and there is this spacecraft. And I can remember it as vividly today as I saw it, 43 years ago, or 40 plus years ago that I saw it for the first time. I could draw this thing for you. It was so clear. Did not make a sound. I could see in detail. It was literally less than 150 feet off the ground, and it was following me on my bike. And I literally hauled butt, got back to my house, pulled into the garage, which was actually just a carport, and watched this thing slowly disappear over the horizon. So anyway, don't know what that really means or what those things were, but I can tell you unequivocally, to this day, I can remember exactly what those things looked like. I can remember exactly what that vessel looked like that was in the air. I can remember the way the front and rear glowed as it moved. And it wasn't like a standard UFO. It was something that I had never seen before and haven't seen anything like it. And just for reference, my father was in the Air Force. He did a lot of dark projects. So I was kind of a brainiac kid that was studying the SR-71 and all of these super fast jets, the F-4E Phantom and the F-15 McDonnell Douglas Eagle. So I knew what, military craft looked like, and I knew how they were supposed to sound. I'd been to air shows. I'd read tons of books on those things. It was something I was very passionate about, and to this day, I have no idea what that thing was. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate the show. Appreciate the ability that you have to reach out to individuals, and I wish you the absolute best. Be well.
Thanks, David. Now, I can't help but notice that this ball of energy, for lack of a better term, was discovered on the property of the power company, and that it was seen near high-voltage power lines. That sort of detail makes me wonder if it wasn't some sort of ball lightning, somehow attracted by, or possibly even created by, the nearby power company. But that's when the paranormal side of my brain starts to include other puzzle pieces, like the wood structure found deep in the forest, a structure that's often referred to as a wood structure, and is often believed to be associated with Sasquatch or Bigfoot activity. And that made me think of the notion that Sasquatch or Bigfoot, whichever term you like to use, has been seen in conjunction with glowing balls of light, orbs, some people call them. Now, that activity has been reported in the past. Not often, but often enough to find its way onto Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot.
All right, well, I was sitting up here on the truck, having a smoke. It was just getting dark. And literally right across the street, there's like a green-red orb just sitting there. It like pulsated red, then turned green, and then all of a sudden, just saw this thing just walking. And I ran over to the fence. By the time I got to the fence, it was gone. It just disappeared.
Describe what you saw.
It was tall, brown, short head coming down.
Did you see any details on the face?
No, I couldn't see the details.
How do you know it wasn't a black bear?
I mean, it was just way too tall.
Now, that report taken just up the road from me, over in Big Bear, California. And to toss another piece of anecdotal evidence onto the pile, longtime listeners of this show already know that North Carolina the location of David's experience is well-known Bigfoot country, which makes this theory even more possible. That's when he had to go and toss a UFO into the mix. But listen, that's okay. I can also make that connection, too. It's not super popular, but it's reported from time to time that Bigfoot or Sasquatch is sometimes seen alongside a floating or hovering UFO. Or better yet, coming straight out of one. To prove to you that that's something that's really claimed, here's the star of Ancient Aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos, repeating that info. Ironically discussing sightings in and around another national park. Now this clip property of In Search of Aliens.
Curiously, the Olympic mountain range is also a hotspot for UFO activity. Over the years, there have been hundreds of reported sightings of strange objects appearing and then quickly disappearing in the sky. In June 2011, 2 people even claimed they witnessed a cigar-shaped object hovering in the sky for nearly 15 minutes. There have also been reports of people who saw strange lights following a Bigfoot encounter. And there are even some reports of Bigfoot being seen coming out of a disc-shaped craft.
It's almost as if the UFO comes from a distant time or place, and the Sasquatch travel here within that craft, and somehow use the glowing ball of light during their time here on our planet's timeline or plane, suggesting that they may be even more intelligent than we've given them credit for. It's not the craziest thing I've ever proposed. So I don't want to jump to any conclusions here, David, but I will say that an orb-wielding wild man is so much more fun than ball lightning. So hopefully you had the latter experience on your hands. But regardless of which it was, we do thank you for calling in. Alright folks, that's going to do it for this evening. Thank you all for the support, per usual. I know I keep saying it, but your support is directly keeping the episodes flowing. So a humongous thank you yet again. Now I'll catch you back here next week with a brand new installment. But until then, I will see you later. Okay, so it's been a bit since we hit a secret entry on this side of the paywall. So let's dust that custom off and fire up one more entry. Yet another strange one. This time, from Sean in the land of Lincoln.
Hey Derek, this is Sean from Illinois. I wanted to share an experience I had the other day. So I'm a truck driver, and I was on my way back from Minneapolis. And this is the middle of the day. It was a very nice day, sunny but kind of windy. And I was about an hour into my drive going eastbound on I-94 in northwest Wisconsin at this point. And I'm just looking out my window, enjoying the scenery. It's very rural with lots of farms and pastures. And as I'm looking at the right side of my cab, I happen to notice a particular pasture that's only about 30 or 40 yards off the highway. And there's a bunch of animals in this pasture. I'd say at least 10 to 15 animals, like a mix of goats and horses, and they appear to be grazing. But as I'm getting closer to these animals, what strikes me is they appear to be not moving at all, like they're totally still. You know, typically when you see animals grazing, you'll notice some movement, like walking around or swishing tails, you know, or twitching ears or mouths moving as they're chewing grass. But with these animals, I didn't notice any movement at all. They were totally frozen. In fact, some of these animals were kind of like mid-stride, which was weird. I mean, I'd mentioned before it was, you know, kind of a windy day, but I didn't see any movement, you know, in the horses' manes or tails, or even the grass around them should have been rustling around or whatever. It was almost as if I was seeing a photo of a scene as opposed to real life playing itself out, if that makes sense. But granted, you know, at most I only had about 5 seconds to see all this as I'm passing by, so, you know, maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me, or who knows, maybe this farmer had life-size statues of animals in his pasture for some reason, or I don't know, maybe it was a glitch in the Matrix. But I'd love to get your take on this, Derek. Thanks for all you do, and as everybody else says, keep up the great work.
Thank you, Sean. You know, when animals sense danger, sometimes they freeze in place, especially prey animals. Because on occasion, that's enough for a predator to lose interest or for a threat to be evaluated and possibly dismissed. So I wonder if all the animals sensed danger all at once and acted accordingly. Or, as a piggyback to what Sean suggested, maybe not statues, but possibly wood cutouts. I've seen my fair share of Bigfoot cutouts online over the years, so I imagine the cattle cutouts could exist as well. Or, maybe it's as he suggested, some sort of glitch in time, another one of these frozen moments. And if that is the case, and that is what happened to these poor animals, it leaves me with a new burning question. Where do the cows go during this stint of misplaced time? Do they go to the same place that we do? And is that where minute stakes come from? Regardless of my nonsense, we thank you again, Sean, for sharing. And we thank you, dear listener, for being a squad member and for joining us here this evening. Keep it spooky out there. And please, have yourself a good night.